Welcome to Logistics Unplugged. My name is Brian Blalock, and I'm your host, and I'm happy to jump in today to all things logistics. So let's pull back the curtain, take a look under the hood, and have a great discussion. I am absolutely thrilled today to have my good friend Keith Chyla, the Vice President of Logistics for TMC Logistics, here as my guest. Keith, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Brian. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, a lot of the topic today is going to be about partnerships. And we know we have a partnership together, Bluegrace and TMC. That's where we work, no big secret there. But this is about partnerships in general and us finding ways to do the right thing for the customer, putting them at the center of their own business universe and trying to find the right solutions for them. And so we'll go down a little bit of that. But before we do, Keith, I'm going to go a little bit reverse from how a lot of these start. I want to talk to you a little bit about TMC and let you really kind of give me the story. Give me a little of the history. Tell me about TMC as a company, and then we'll jump into it.
Well, thanks, Brian. As I understand it, Harold Annette started TMC back in 1972, and he borrowed $5,000 from his in-laws to start the company. So no pressure there to be successful,
Not
right?
at all. I'm thinking about my in-laws as we speak.
There you go. Yeah, so we started with 6 trucks and in Des Moines, Iowa. And flash forward to today, and we're just over 3,300 trucks on the road, and we're growing. In fact, we just are putting the final touches on our new terminal in Columbia, South Carolina. Of course, our headquarters is there in Des Moines, Iowa, where we have a training center, as well as we own a hotel there for our drivers to be well appointed when they're going through training. And we have another terminal there in Indianapolis, as well as a smaller terminal in Joplin, Missouri. So we're well positioned on the asset side, as well as our logistics division.
And Keith, you mentioned Columbia, and I think we've talked about this before, but long ago in a galaxy far away, when I was in a different industry, there was a restaurant in Columbia, South Carolina, and lo and behold, I looked it up. It was called the Lizard's Thicket, if you can believe it. Interesting name. And it was delicious. And it was, I believe, sitting right at the edge of the property that you have now at your facility. So don't think I won't come visit if they're still there.
We would love to have you down there. And I'm sure there's going to be a nice grand opening this summer. We're looking forward to that. It's situated right by the FedEx terminal on about 40 acres there, just near USC, if you're familiar with that area.
Absolutely. Well, listen, sign me up. I'll be there.
All right.
I like it. And Keith, before we really jump too much into the partnerships and to the industry and that part of the conversation, I always like for people to get to know us a little bit. And I've had the opportunity to do that with you. And you and I have had many conversations, but it all started when we first began to put a partnership together between our two companies. We enjoyed having a relationship with the largest privately owned flatbed provider in the country, like those black and chrome shiny trucks. And you were looking for technology and solutions to help expand LTL for your business. And both of us had the same mindset of let's do what's right for our customers. Let's put them at the center of the universe. And I'm going to steal something from you, and we'll talk about that later, looking for business outcomes. And that's exactly what happened. But it didn't happen in 5 minutes, did it, Keith?
Oh, no. No, that was a good 10-month process, I would think. So well vetted, but we wanted to be with the best in that space. And we learned a lot along the way, I'll say that. In fact, we could probably write a book, Brian, about that experience.
I think we did, Keith. We just didn't publish it.
Is this the precursor to the book here? It'll be coming out next week? Or?
We'll be on tour in your area, but I want to hear some of the nitty-gritty, tough stuff that you dealt with on the road. Keith, I don't want to say a bad story, but tell me a tough situation that you ran into on the road.
Okay, here's the challenging story, Brian. I went to go meet with a worm castings company. I will not give you the name, but so you're going in there, and that's maybe one that you don't want to take a tour of. Okay, there's not a lot to see there. But
I haven't toured a lot of worm casting facilities, Keith. If I'm being honest with you,
I'm going to say you're not missing much. Nothing against worm casting companies because they're great for your plants, and it's a great way to fertilize. But so I walk into the office, and a real nice lady, and she sits me down there in the office, and we start talking through her supply chain. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm allergic to cats, right?
Oh, no.
And next thing you know, out of nowhere from this cat tower, a cat jumps down right on my lap, and I'm obviously surprised. She doesn't do anything. It's like normal for her. She doesn't get out of her chair or anything. So I gently placed the cat on the floor, and when a cat knows that you don't want them by you, and you're maybe allergic to cats, they're all over you. So this cat was rubbing on my leg and just loving life, and I'm not interested at all. So and I'm trying to understand the tenets of her supply chain, and at this point I just want to get out of the office. Right, I'm done. But we did move some business with them, and all's well that ends well. You take a Benadryl and you're off to your next sales call. But I would say that would be one that I wouldn't want to relive.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had to get the EpiPen out on that one.
Yeah, no, I almost had to get an EpiPen out on a fish story, but don't take me out for oysters. So.
So, I don't have a crazy cat story to tell you, but I will say it is interesting when you think back on the miles that we used to put on the road. And I'll tell you that when I used to travel quite a bit, I was at a truck stop at about, 12:30 at night eating. Shocker. And,
where are we going with this, Brian?
Nowhere good. And so I'm sitting there talking to another guy that's sitting at the counter eating as well. And we're just kind of sharing the stories of our day. And I'm talking about, I started the day, I think, in right outside of Washington, D.C., in some town in Maryland. Visited a customer there. And then I was, later on in the day, I was in Kentucky. And I don't even remember where I was by the time. I think I was in Jackson, Georgia by the time this was over with. And so, I don't know, I'd driven 700 or 800 miles during the course of my adventure. And he's looking at me like, how did you do that? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, I'm not allowed to drive that far. And that was the first time anyone had ever explained the hours of service to me and the rules around how long you can drive a truck. I wasn't driving a truck. I was going to see my customers, and in between, I was doing a lot of driving. So that was a very eye-opening for me, and let me know that I probably shouldn't drive as much. So things happen when you're on the road. It's challenging, but it does offer you the opportunity to get in front of your customers, which we all love. But it usually brings some stories in with it. So I enjoyed hearing yours, Keith. And I'm going to go down the road of, we've asked this a couple of times in a few of the different podcasts, but all of us have an association to this industry, and most of us have some type of musical association to it, Keith. So tell me, is there a song that you relate to trucking?
There's a lot of good trucking songs out there, but I think today I'm going to go with Eastbound and Down.
I love it.
By Jerry Reed, right?
I think that was Jerry Reed, and I believe that was from Smokey and the Bandit, which is maybe before a few people's times, but not ours.
Right on.
We saw it on Netflix much later. So great movie, great trucking introduction. But I'm going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper on the music side, Keith, because you shared something with me that you probably shouldn't, because I'm going to call it out now. I know your team did a little something with something a little more modern in trucking. Tell me about that.
Well, don't ask me to sing it, Brian, but we had an intern project at our Ames, Iowa office, which is right near Iowa State's campus, and they came out with "We're Bringing Flatbed Back."
Oh,
it was a pretty good rendition.
I like it.
We're not going to play it live on here because I don't have the rights to it, but man, you'll have to hit me up on the side after you watch this or listen to this podcast, and we can give you the details on that.
I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head now. I'm going to chime in. Take it to the dock. So I love it, and now we've got our music outlined, and we can move into it. We've even got our movie. We got Smokey and the Bandit up there. We're moving on, and we talked about the length of time that we put into kind of vetting and putting together this partnership. But I will say, Keith, we joke a lot, but it was worth the wait. And we're happy to have you as a partner, and I appreciate you being here with me today.
It was a great experience. It really was. Relationships are built on a few things, right? Trust, transparency, integrity, and you want to know that you're with a strong character. And Brian is a strong character if you've never met him before.
He's at least a character.
No doubt.
So let's jump back into some of the conversation that we're here for today. Let's talk about actually moving freight for the partners that we have out there. And by partners, I mean our customers. And let's talk about the importance of collaboration between a shipper and a carrier and what that really means. What works, Keith, and what doesn't?
You really have to be solving for your customers. A lot of people used to call me the freight doctor because I try to get all the symptoms of what the shipper had.
I like it.
And once you kind of go through that questioning strategy, right, where you uncover where their pain points are, where the bottlenecks are, and what's happening, you can really get to the core of the problem. And once you solve for that, you've really got a strong relationship. You're bringing value to the table. I always ask, what can I help you solve for, and what business outcomes can I drive home for you? So are we looking to reduce your spend? Are we looking to increase visibility? How can we maximize your efficiency and your time? And how can we reduce your risk?
Yeah, and it's so important. And you're exactly right. You can't fix anything if you don't know what the problem is. You can't cure anything if you don't know why they're sick, right? So,
True.
So taking the time, we might have to drive someone crazy trying to ask enough questions so that we can really understand their business, but shame on the ones that don't, because the goal should be to have a partnership when a partnership works, and that should be understanding each other, knowing that you can bring value to each other's company. So love it. We did that for each other. I will say, Keith and I agreed to a lot of things, but we both found out that we are not lawyers, nor did we play one on TV, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So we had to leave that to the legal minds and get through all the hurdles so that we could make something that really serves a purpose to take care of our customers. And I think that's what we've done. And partnerships are not just things between companies like ours, but the shippers are our partners. The carriers are our partners. That's the 3 in the 3PL, right? And understanding that there's relationships to build. And I love where you started that. The freight doctor, I'm going to start calling you that, Keith. I probably have to get you a shirt that says that. But knowing that we start with that diagnosis and try to figure out the solution. And there's times when we look at a patient, we decide we're not the right doctor for them, right?
True.
So having, I guess, the ethics to say this works and this doesn't, it makes your job a lot easier, because you look for the partnerships. If we're calling you, it's because we've done enough of a diagnostics to say that we think there's value that we can bring. And I know that about your team, Keith, and I know that that's an important step for them, making sure they understand that. And one of those pieces is understanding where technology fits in our world. So neither one of us are programmers, but talk to me about where you've seen technology kind of fitting into the world that we're in now, and how that fits into the shipper's world, how that may drive improvement for them.
It's a bit of a roller coaster on what tech has done in the supply chain space over, let's say, the last 5 years. There's been a lot of private equity that went into supply chain technology, and there's some cool things happening out there right now. You're now starting to see AI get involved in that, and some of the companies that are using that and how they're applying it to their business in terms of tracking, in terms of appointment scheduling, et cetera. And safety and security is a huge topic in the marketplace right now, and there's been some good companies trying to tackle that as well. So it is hard to keep up on all of the tech and all the different offerings that are out there, but when you do find top-notch technology and providers that have that, you definitely want to partner up and produce a solid solution with those, because nobody is standalone jack of all trades, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. And, Keith, we are in this industry because we have a desire to provide service. But none of that happens until you've kind of gone through the pains of how you develop relationships with customers, the sales world. And I'm going to take you back to the movie side for a minute, because I know both of you and I both share this passion for really bad movies. I'm not saying that this is a bad one, but the greatest sales movie of all time, Tommy Boy.
Absolutely.
And it brings me to the thought of what it's like when folks used to go out, like you and I both did, on the road and really get in front of their customers in some of those stories. So I'm going to ask you to shift back into that road warrior mode for a minute, and let's take some tales from the road. Let's take a craziest sales story, sales adventure that you've had out there.
Craziest.
Or a top 10 at least.
Okay. So craziest sales story, good or bad?
Let's roll the dice on that one.
Most fun?
Most fun, most interesting, and then I'll tell you whether that was good or bad, and we'll go from there.
All right, I'll go with most fun. So I always used to tell people this was my number one top adventure sales story. I was working with a client in Utah, and how I connected with them was my wife wanted some organic salt to put on our popcorn, and This was when my kids were young, and we were watching Disney movies and eating popcorn.
Love it.
And so I called up this company and I said, "Hey, I eat so much of your salt at Disney movie night with my girls. I should probably ship it." And the lady's like, "I've never heard that approach before. What have you got?" So started talking to her, and lo and behold, about a year later, they invited me out to their facility in Salt Lake. And we met at the facility early in the morning from their production facility and then drove 2 hours south to their mine. And once we got to the mine, it was a guy that kind of looked like Larry the Cable Guy, said, "All right, we're going to do the tour. Here we go." He had the cut-off sleeves, the whole 9 yards, gave me a hard hat. We popped in the truck, and then we drove down, and the biggest garage door I've ever seen in my life went up, and we went down into the mine, and there's all these huge, the Tonka trucks that you see driving around in there, right? And then he said, "Do you guys want to blow some stuff up?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I want to blow stuff up." So he went into what you'd see in the cartoons as kind of the explosive closets. It's written explosive all over it. And he takes out a crate.
I'm picturing Coyote and Roadrunner right now as you're telling me this.
Yeah, and you're thinking that I'm going to end up with the flour around my head at the end, right?
Absolutely.
So he grabs this crate of dynamite sticks, puts it in the back of the truck, and I'm like, "Easy, killer." And he's like, "Well, they're not going to blow up on their own, champ." So he drives us back up out of the mine, and they own all the land around the mine. So he places dynamite sticks at 50, 100, 150, and he's like, "Okay, here we're going to take this off the test gun here so that we can go ahead and blow some stuff up." So he hands it to me, and of course I got the first two, no problem, and then the third one I missed. And so he's like, "Couple clicks to the right, it's a little windy out here." So, and then I was able to hit it. But yeah, that was, I literally blew stuff up on a sales call. So
I've blown up a few sales calls, but I don't think I've ever literally done it. So very cool. I don't have one that matches up to that. But I will tell you that in the old days when I was going on the road, I used to sit down and, we didn't have MapQuest or GPS or anything. It was a map. And I used to use the end of my finger to let me know that's about 45 minutes of drive time, based on the scale of that map. But I would also put little stars all over the map for my favorite barbecue places. And I would always make sure the trips that I went on had to be involved with me visiting each one of those barbecue places. So I would get to experience some, North Carolina vinegar-based barbecue and some ketchup-based Georgia barbecue, and get over to Kansas City for some good ribs. And I'd always make all of my customer visits kind of follow around that. And if they were too far away, I'd just have them come meet me. So it's interesting. The world is bigger and smaller, right? We're able to get in front of people with technology, but I do enjoy getting in front of a customer. There's nothing like shaking a hand and being able to go on a dock and see the actual operations, see exactly what the challenges are that our partners deal with, and doing that in person. And I love that there's new technology, but that new technology is there to enhance a personal relationship of a human being that's coming to do a better job, hopefully, than whoever did it before.
that's right, Brian. Relationships will never go away. Technology is not going to replace trust in relationships. When you can look somebody in the eye and shake their hand and know that you're going to get the job done for them, that's a great feeling.
It absolutely is. And just so you know that when our director, Milvia, was listening to us practicing for today, she was considering replacing me with AI because she was really afraid of some of the bad jokes I was going to tell today. So, Milvia, thank you for letting me go ahead with it. So, Keith, I want to talk a little bit before we get near the end of our time. I want to talk a little bit about capacity, and I want to talk about some of the offerings and things that you have at TMC. You were kind enough to come into town to join us today and share some information. So talk to me a little bit about the capacity for TMC and where the types of shippers that you've really developed the best relationships with. What is an ideal take it to the asset side and then take it to the other side as well?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I would say that we're one of the nation's largest flatbed aggregators of capacity. We have our fleet, which is large and services all sorts of different customers, from steel to roofing to building components to tractors, agriculture equipment, and the like. And our logistics side, we can handle anything on the flatbed space as well as dry van. And as you know, we have a great LTL platform that we're have some great technology with.
I've heard about that.
It's second to none. And as that, really, like I said, we try to get in there and understand what the customer's trying to solve for. We have a dedicated division, we have a specialized division, then of course just our standard open deck. And we really want to find out if the customer's a good fit for us as much as we're a good fit for them.
Absolutely.
And like you said, sometimes we might make a different recommendation because it might not be something that we would be the best fit for. So, but all those relationships are built on trust, and really you want to build with your customer. Understand what phase of their business they're in and how can you augment that to help them get good results, right? You want to be their strategic advantage in the marketplace. So,
well, that's a perfect way to say it, Keith, and I think that that's probably a perfect way for us to close this up today, because I've enjoyed having you here with me. We've been able to joke a little bit and have the personal part of the conversation. I've learned a little bit about, and everyone else has learned a little bit about TMC, and we appreciate you being our guest here today. Learned a little bit about partnerships, and I want to kind of close with this. We talked about the partnership between our companies. We talked about the partnership between the 3PL and the shipper. But in any business, Keith couldn't have said anything better than that first word, which is trust. Make sure that you're working with companies that are looking out for your best interests, because when you do and those interests align, there's an opportunity for both of you to be successful. So whether that's as a seller or a buyer, looking for the opportunities to improve cost, to improve performance, to improve stability and trust, all those things go into the decisions that you make. So make good ones. And we appreciate everybody being here today. Keith, thank you so much. And that's a wrap. We'll see you next time. Look for next Tuesday's episode of Logistics Unplugged.